Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome into the show. Marc Farzetta with you here on the Farzy Show at the Steven Singer Studios. Ben Simmons really said after last night's abysmal performance, not just by him, but by the team, said after last night's game that the altitude got to him in Denver. Now, very rare. I like to set up the show. By the way, Marcus Hayes is today's guest, so we'll talk to Marcus coming up in about 20 minutes. I like to set up the show usually unless something gets said that really perturbs me, right? And him blaming the altitude last night after the game really perturbed me. I'm perturbed. I'm in a state of perturbedness, right? I hate that. And it's funny, every time even if I make a prediction that the Sixers are going to do bad or a team's going to do bad, and then it happens, I'm still pissed off. It's not like I go, oh, well, I totally saw this happening. Yeah, it's fine. No, I said that at some point there was going to be a clunker, and this game was probably going to be that clunker going up against the Denver Nuggets in Denver with no Joel Embiid, and not just the second best center, I believe, in the league, but the second best MVP candidate that there is in the NBA right now, in Joker himself. And he goes out there last night, just does whatever he wants. Jamal Murray, same type of thing. But you're watching this game unfold the way that it unfolded, and the guy you're really watching is Ben Simmons. And I know the whole team put in the clunker, but for whatever reason, it just bothered me the most that it was Ben. It bothered me that he got trucked by Campazzo last night. If you didn't see that, I got that highlight for you. And then after the game, he was asked kind of what the deal was, and he said the SH word, right? He said that, and then he's got to get his you-know-what together. So good. I'm glad we're on the same page. And then he also said that the altitude really got to him. Now, I know that some athletes have had to deal with serious issues, like Ryan Clark when he would play out there as a member of the Steelers. Well, as a matter of fact, he couldn't play out there. He got to a point he couldn't play out there in Denver because of, I believe it was a lung issue that he had. So it's no joke, all right? And if you've ever been altitude sickness, had altitude sickness, I have, by the way, it's no joke. But when you hear from a professional athlete that played in a game in the same stadium where other players were playing, and some of those other players looked fine, it makes me just very frustrated. So you're watching Ben last night, and you're thinking at some point he's going to kick it in that high gear, right? At some point, you're going to see great defense. At some point, you're going to see him drive to the lane. You're going to see him put up points. When everybody else is struggling, you want to see your all-star point guard be able to do that. And last night, it never happened. And it was just a weird game to watch, really, this entire Sixers team go through the motions. But the guy that you're used to giving out a very similar effort every single night didn't have that. Had like 3 rebounds, 2 assists, just was not there for Ben Simmons. None of it was last night, and it wasn't there for anybody. So it makes you think about the future. It makes you think about, and I don't mean down the line future, like far down the line. It means like in a game or two. Like, for instance, after they play the Cleveland Cavaliers in the end of this road trip in Cleveland, tomorrow night, by the way, it makes you think about coming home and hopefully Joel Embiid rejoining this team. I thought he might be back for this game. Now, you think about it, probably not going to join during the road trip. So hopefully when they do return after this Cleveland Cavaliers game, Joel Embiid comes back. However, yesterday, Doc Rivers addressed the media, I believe this was before the game, saying where he was asked about Joel Embiid coming back, and it still seems very much up in the air. Here's Doc Rivers on that.
I don't know, Keith, but whenever Joel comes back, we're going to go back to our normal rotation. But I have no idea. He's close. I can tell you that. He's working every day. I get reports back daily, and he looks good. He's doing well.
I had flashbacks while watching that to the days of Brett Brown. And I don't mean like last year Brett Brown. I mean Brett Brown, process Brett Brown. When will Joel Embiid be back? Is he ever going to be back? That type of thing. That's what I had flashbacks to with the way that Doc Rivers was talking about it. And if you remember going into this injury, Doc Rivers talked about how Joel Embiid was going to be a huge concern here, and how even the trade deadline was kind of was on the back burner compared to just getting Joel Embiid back healthy, how they have to make sure that they get it back healthy. And I'm just hoping this doesn't lead into a big drawn out process of, God forbid, of when he's actually going to return to the lineup. And it seems like the head coach right there of the 76ers is going, yeah, I don't know. All I know is when he's 100% healthy and then some, pretty much, is how you take it, that's when he'll be back in the lineup. Didn't know if that was going to be against Cleveland. Probably not against Cleveland. Might be when they return home from this road trip. And they certainly needed him last night going up against the Denver Nuggets with that awful performance. And I told you a clunker was waiting for him, and there it was. Still, you don't want to see it. No matter how much you might be expecting it, you didn't want to see it. I stayed away from the Sixers game last night. We'll talk about that a little bit more in our big bet segment, how I actually pulled away from a bet later in the day yesterday to just, take a night off, if you will. So we got plenty of Sixers conversation that we'll get into as well a little bit later in the show. We'll hear a little bit more from Doc Rivers and everything he has going on from last night, especially his reaction to the game last night, because his reaction was 1,000% actually. 1,000% accurate, on point with how he went about the game last night afterwards and how he described the way his team played, or at least attempted to play basketball. I mentioned, and Facu, is that how he's Facundo Capazio? I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He's Argentinian. I believe he's 5'9", and he trucked Ben Simmons last night. And I referenced it earlier. If you haven't seen it, here it is. And this is, I believe, the play-by-play call courtesy of the Denver Nuggets Sports Network. If you take a look, you see Ben Simmons right there, middle of the screen. They'll give it back. Boom, right there. Ben spent a long time talking to the official after this play, wanting a foul call on Campazzo. He didn't get it because he got trucked. And anytime a wee fella, around the 6 foot, trucks somebody who's 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", right? Chances are the 6'10" person is not going to be getting that call. And I know Al Abdelnaby was saying last night that Ben's got to be, he's got to lean into it a little bit more, make sure he can administer a little bit more of that hit. But yeah, there was no foul call on that play. And I don't think there should have been a foul call on that play. But in case you've been going around social media today and you've been seeing that name pop up, that's probably why. Because he took down Ben Simmons in last night's game, as did the rest of the Denver Nuggets. So go figure as far as that one goes. So we got more Sixers conversation, like I said, that we're going to get into a little bit later. Also, one story that will just fill your heart with joy. It will fill your heart with joy when it comes to Danny Green. And I actually, last night, they played it after the Sixers postgame show. Last night, they actually played Danny Green's, and I don't know if this is something they've been doing. I haven't seen it, but they played Danny Green's podcast on NBC Sports Philadelphia after the game. And it was really interesting, actually. They had Daryl Morey on as a guest. Danny Green had his own GM on as a guest. And he got to ask him about, hey, so my name in trade talks, what was that like? It was actually a pretty cool dynamic to see how the two handled it. Both very professional, very informative, as you would assume with both those characters. And it was cool the way that he conducted the interview with his own general manager. And Danny Green himself did something great that we'll show you a little bit later in the program. But yeah, by the way, Ben Simmons did score in double figures last night. Still scored 11 points. 3 assists, 2 rebounds. I had that reversed. So not exactly what you want to see from Ben Simmons in 26 minutes played last night. You want to see a little bit more than that. Doc Rivers did go to the bench rather early. I guess he kind of sensed that it was going to be one of those nights, and the Sixers, of course, didn't respond. They made a game of it late. They actually outscored the Denver Nuggets 24-16. I didn't know it was that close in the fourth quarter. 24-16 in the fourth quarter. Tyrese Maxey hit a big three. A couple of these guys hit some big shots late in that game to actually make it a little bit of a game late. They were down by 20 points through the vast majority. Ended up losing by 9. But an unfortunate game for the Sixers, and hopefully they'll be able to bounce back against a team they always seem to struggle against in the Cleveland Cavaliers tomorrow night. So we'll get into that, like I said, a little bit later. The surprising news from yesterday, Shane Gostisbehere being placed on waivers. Shane Gostisbehere is not some great defenseman. he is far, far from what we expected him to be when we saw him throughout his rookie season. Far from it. However, defensemen on this team, slim pickings, no? And of all the people, he's placed on waivers. This is a guy that was benched for a couple of games earlier in the season. TK was also benched for a couple of games earlier in the season. And I feel like Gostisbehere and Travis Konechny, as a matter of fact, recently, very recently, these last two games, have actually stepped up. I think even beyond these last two games, Travis Konechny's energy, it seems like somebody pushed that energy button in him, and he's gotten going again just a little bit. You see that kind of spark from him on the ice again. So that's been great. But I found it was very interesting right now to see Shane Gostisbehere placed on waivers. Alain Vigneault said yesterday after practice that they think that he will clear waivers, be able to be put on the taxi squad, and they could do with him as they please. I was shocked by this. I know he hasn't been great. And I know if you're shocked by somebody being placed on waivers, it should be, oh, well, you should be shocked. This guy sucks. I actually think he's been playing better lately. And I guess it's just another way to try to shake things up for the Flyers, give them a little bit more of that optionality, I guess, with whatever they want to do with their roster. But I was very surprised. I know a lot of people were surprised that Shane Gostisbehere was placed on waivers. I actually think it's funny for the fact that they just won 2 games. They just won 2 games, and now they're placing him on waivers. Very odd as far as I was concerned. I think Sam Morin's been playing well recently in his opportunity, and it's been very sparse. But I'm not going to jump to a conclusion that now Ghost needs to be placed on waivers simply because Sam Morin has been playing well in these couple of games with the Flyers, and now they have a 2-game winning streak. And as I joked yesterday, I guess it's not really a winning streak until you win 3 in a row. But they got the Buffalo Sabres again. They had another practice yesterday in Buffalo. And I know Alain Vigneault had been just so desperate for more hockey practices to try to get these guys back on track. Hopefully another one will help him out. They already got Carter Hart on the bench where he's just getting the off-the-ice workouts or the practice workouts, if you will. So they're trying to shake things up again. What I'm going to be looking forward to seeing tonight against Buffalo Sabres, again in Buffalo, what I'm going to be looking forward to seeing is whether or not you see Jake Voracek, Claude Giroux, and Sean Couturier on the same line again. And I know that's one of the things that they were trying to get going again at the end of the game against the Sabres when they were down 3-0 in the third period. That's one of the things I'm going to be looking forward to seeing tonight, how Alain Vigneault shuffles these lines again. But now, even beyond just shuffling lines, it seems like they're going even more so to the front office for guys on waivers, trying to shake things up that way. Look, if they're not able to turn things around, if they're not able to go on some kind of great winning streak right now, or at least some kind of great point streak, if they're not able to do that at this point, it ain't going to be for a lack of trying. I'll tell you that much. As you've seen them shuffle lines before, you've seen guys get benched before. I mean, now Carter Hart, like I said, Travis Konechny earlier, and Shane Gostisbehere before that. So it's not going to be by a lack of effort that they're not going to turn things around. They're pushing every button, sometimes pushing too many buttons, if you ask me. But it seems like right now they are just going in almost desperation mode, despite having 2 wins now in their back pocket. They're not resting on their laurels. They're not all encouraged because of 2 victories, especially when we had to come back from 3-0. But they're certainly going to do everything they can to make sure that they're getting back on track. So we'll follow the Flyers as we always do, and hopefully tomorrow we'll have a nice story to report back to you on a great win against the Buffalo Sabres yet again. Maybe a comfortable win. Maybe a win that you weren't really sweating. So hopefully that's the case. The other thing was yesterday it became official, and we talked about it with you, Douglas, yesterday. The NFL is adding a 17th game to the schedule. I have said many times, and I just got done saying about the Sixers, even if you expect a clunker and it happens, you're still pissed off. I expected the NFL to move on to another game, to add games to the schedule. Certainly we're going to take games away. I had told you many times that they were going to add games to the schedule. I cited the health reasons, the reasons they're trying to make this game so much safer with concussion protocol, helmet-to-helmet hits, and all that. The objective, the green hat on the sidelines has got to put somebody through protocol. Everybody to a man. No, never. They can't do that. No way. The players' union will never allow it. Yeah, you want another game check? How are you going to allow it? So sure enough, they've allowed it. I just think it's dumb. And I know a lot of people just say, more football, rah! Yesterday, it was pretty close on our poll that we put out there. it was pretty close. People saying, yeah, still the majority wanted more football. But for me, I thought a 16-game schedule was perfect. Bye week, you're good. Forget about it. You're good to go. That's all you need. But now the 17th game. First off, I don't know how I'm going to do math for 17 when my brain is so trained for 16. When other teams had to miss games or postpone them due to COVID this past year, like the Titans, I think, and some other teams, like my brain hurt so much from trying to do math in like week 13 that only really matched up with week 10. Like it's like, oh wait, hold on. They're 5-5. No, they're not. Like now I'm gonna have to try to work out an extra game. That's gonna melt my idiot brain. All right. Thanks a lot, Roger Goodell. Thanks a lot, NFL. Now I got to learn math again. But I don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't like it. I feel like the NFL is almost a perfect entity in how they construct their season. Now I believe they're getting into why the Roman Empire fell, which is a simple reason: greed, overextended. That is what the NFL is doing. And what's really crazy is I think the NFL could get away with it. I think the NFL could get away with even like 2 more games on the schedule, getting it to 18 games. I think 20 people are starting to ask more questions. But in an 18-game schedule, if you add the other bye week, whatever it might be, add the roster spots, whatever they end up doing, I just don't get it with them adding a game. If they add this one game, I think they're going to add another, and I think that it has to stop there because you can't have 20 games in an NFL season, right? Right? So for me, I know that we're going to eat it up, and I could talk out and say it's bad, but obviously by week 18, I'm going to be looking. I'm going to be watching. By the 17th game, I'll say that. I'll still be watching. I'll still be on the edge. And obviously in February, where you're going to have the Super Bowl button up against Valentine's Day. It's only a matter before that becomes a hot button issue in some relationships. But it finally happened. They finally added to the schedule. Even though I'd been expecting it, I think it's too much. I thought you were perfect at 16. We'll talk about that with Marcus Hayes when he joins us in just a couple of minutes. It's wild. I'm not a fan of it. Even though I know it was inevitable, here we are. We have 17 games, and whoop-de-doo. Do want to tell you about my friend Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, and right here at the Steven Singer Studios, I always like to send people to Steven Singer, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, or at IHateStevenSinger.com. If you don't go there, give him a chance. Just give him one chance. You'll never go anywhere else. I guarantee it. Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, IHateStevenSinger.com. When you walk in, you have a real jewelry expert walk you through everything when you go into Steven Singer Jewelers. They sit you down, you can look at all the inventory, and they show you diamonds with ready for love engagement rings. If that's what you're doing, they got the great inventory there at Steven Singer Jewelers. And I make sure I send my own family to the Steven Singer Jewelers people. I also send my friends there. That's why I send you there. Sent my buddy Robert there just 2 weeks ago to buy a wedding band. He just loved the experience. Steven Singer Jewelers guarantees the perfect price every time you go there. Some other jewelers, they want you to go in there and negotiate and haggle and try to do all that. Don't worry about that. You already got a big decision on your plate. You already got a big decision right in front of you. There's no reason to add the pressure of negotiating to that pressure. No, you don't need that. So every single time you go to Steven Singer Jewelers, everything's already set at the perfect price. Steven Singer Jewelers guarantees it. Everything at the perfect price. Go to the other corner of 8th and Walnut or try IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, let's get to our friend. And it's the first time he's joining us here on the show, and I apologize it took so long. We talked about Marcus Hayes yesterday when we were on with Hugh Douglas, and it got me thinking, we got to talk to Marcus Hayes. And then I saw a story about Scott Kingery, and I was like, I need to talk to this guy even more. We're 1 day away from not spring training ending. It's already over, but we're 1 day away from opening day at Citizens Bank Park. So let's bring him in on the Zatos Investments guest line from Inquirer.com, Marcus Hayes. Joining us on the Zatos Investments guest line from Inquirer.com, our friend Marcus Hayes joins us for the first time on this show. What's going on there, Marcus?
I feel honored, Mark. I mean, geez. It's only been how long you been on the air? About 6 weeks? 8 weeks?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, almost 2 months. Yeah.
So I guess I was 416th in line. So better than 417. That's great. Appreciate it.
Now I'll tell you what it was. I don't know if your ears were ringing yesterday or really early this morning. Our old friend Hugh Douglas, who joins the show every Tuesday.
Who
So
I
blame
saw.
him. Yeah. Oh, you saw?
Oh, yeah.
So Hugh just he loved your tweet. He was singing your praises when it came to just being a realist, as always, when it comes to particularly this Philadelphia Eagles team and the position Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie has put this team in right now, trading back from 6 to 12. Hugh just appreciated your candor.
Well, Hugh was a very high draft pick, and he understands the difference between 6 and 12, 12 and 20, 20 and 32. Hugh was a different talent, and he was a late bloomer, and he hated to practice. He hated to work out. He ate garbage. Like, seriously, I used to call him the candy man because he would keep like 5 pounds of candy in his locker, and that's what he would eat during the season between like lunch and dinner between practices. But he knew he could handle it, and he knew on Sunday he was going to kick the ass at a tackle on the other side. No matter how hard he practiced, no matter how many laps he run, he was going to win because he was special. Special players understand what special is. Special doesn't usually exist outside of the top 10. And when you trade back out of the top 10, I think you're conceding that you don't think special exists in the top 10. And Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts, the receiver from LSU and the tight end from Florida, Howie Roseman's alma mater, those guys are special to me. I might be wrong. I've been wrong before. I thought Jim Druckenmiller was a good first-round pick in 1997, but I'm usually not wrong about the macro issues, and that's a macro issue.
Certainly, and I was shocked to see it, especially because the Eagles are already in a spot where they have the most draft. They're tied for the most draft picks, as you know, in this upcoming draft already. So it seemed like it was unnecessary to move back.
Well, it's almost a concession that, hey, we really don't know what we're doing, so we needed as many chances as we can to get lucky. The draft for them, I always say they're a lottery team because they got to win the lottery to figure out which guy to pick. Every time they make a pick, they're in a lot. There's no certainty. I mean, the most telling and embarrassing moment in the history of the NFL draft for me, and it was unfortunate for the Eagles and a product of COVID and Zoom, is when they chose Justin Rager at 22, and the Minnesota Vikings, who had traded Stefon Diggs, found themselves using that pick from that not-so-great trade to draft Justin Jefferson and laughing at the Eagles. Yeah. Laughing at them. Laughing and saying they didn't take him. They took Rager and laughing at them. And this is the Minnesota Vikings. This isn't, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are spectacular at drafting. This is the Minnesota Vikings laughing at the Eagles, who then drafted a guy in Justin Jefferson who was a polished inside-out receiver and set a rookie record with 1,400 receiving yards, which would have been the second most receiving yards by a receiver in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. It's awful, actually. And now, for the people that are trying to be somewhat optimistic about this draft and still trying to get somebody special outside the top 11, as the Eagles are picking at 12, some people are looking at Jalen Waddle out of Alabama, saying that the Eagles could possibly still get him. There's an outside chance they could get Jamar Chase still. I don't see it happening. I don't see talent like that being passed up on time and time again through the first 11 picks. But how much of a drop off do you think it would be going from a guy like Jamar Smith, going from Kyle Pitts to going to a Jalen Waddle?
I mean, that area, 10 to like 22, 23, it should be used for a guy who you think is going to be an everyday starter for 10 years. And that's what they got when they picked Fletcher Cox 12th. I believe it was 2012, that's a good, solid pick. And he turned out to be a bonus. He turned out to be something special. He's much better than they thought he'd be. But usually what they do, what teams do, is they'll draft somebody with a bunch of caveats and hope they pan out. That's what Derek Barnett is. So you get a lot more Derek Barnetts than you get Fletcher Coxes. On the flip side, the last four top 6 picks the Eagles have been Donovan McNabb, Carson Wentz, both number 2s. Corey Simon, I believe, was a number 6 or maybe a number 7, and was a very good defensive tackle, had some injury issues. And Lane Johnson, the best right tackle they've ever had. So that's the difference, to answer your question. You get guys who are Hall of Fame caliber if they stay free of injury, or you get Derek Barnett.
Yeah, I'm very much in the school of I'd much rather would have made it easier for Howie Roseman in this draft with a higher draft pick as opposed to more draft picks later. I love that 6th pick, and I hate that they moved on from it. Before I transition here and talk some baseball, Marcus, I just want to point out what a hero you're being tonight, because here you are sitting in your car and you're still doing this interview because you're Mr. Carpool right now, taking your daughter to soccer practice?
Right. One of the great things about being a parent is you watch your children become athletes and mature through their stages. And my daughters, I have 3 daughters, are all very good athletes, and they have fun, but practice time, especially in the age of COVID, is hard to come by, and sites are hard to come by. So the practice site tonight is about 30 minutes from our house, and we had some carpool issues. So my evening off spent in my luxuriously appointed office, tastefully decorated office, turned into the front seat of my 5-year-old Kia minivan.
Good work, Dad. Good work. No, I appreciate you still coming on and talk with me about sports. Now, I saw this yesterday, and it wasn't just from the conversation that I had with our friend Hugh Douglas, but it's a great article. I recommend people check this out. It's about Scott Kingery, who, as we know by now, is starting out the season with the minor league ball club. The kid doesn't have a chance. So that caught my attention. How the Phillies inevitably ruined Scott Kingery by Marcus Hayes. This opinion piece at Inquirer.com. I highly recommend everybody checks this out on Inquirer.com. It is a great piece. You work your way down the article and you see the quote, and you attribute the quote to just somebody with the organization. It's an anonymous quote, right?
Well, yeah, it's an anonymous quote from somebody who's still in baseball but no longer with the organization, but was with the organization long enough to understand the progression of Scott Kingery and what he could be. And the person I talked to, when they found that Scott Kingery was going to make the team, in his view, there was no – Scott Kingery hit .411 in spring training. However, there was no universe in which Scott Kingery should make the Phillies team and not play second base every day. That just didn't make any sense. So if you remember, he made the team and they had to play shortstop. He was never a very good shortstop, as a younger player in the a little bit in the minors and in college and in high school, but he's a great second baseman. That was an abomination in the eyes of this former coach. Second, to put him in a position with a new staff, with a general manager and a manager that wanted to base everything on analytics, this coach envisioned Scott Kingery trying to do too much at the plate. And when Scott Kingery realized that he didn't have the natural power to hit home runs and make the bigger bucks, he signed a 6-year, $24 million deal. He tried to gain power and he tried to change his swing. Now, this coach, in one conversation, I think I had it with him like maybe 3 days before camp broke. He was just like, he's got all this money now. They signed him to a 6-year, $24 million deal, having never seen a major league pitcher, having taken, I think, around 200 AAA at bats when 500 or 600 is almost always necessary, and huge expectations. And he just told me, he says, this kid has no chance. And I didn't write it then because I didn't think that was fair to the general manager or the manager, who neither of whom, Matt Klentak and Gabe Kapler, neither of whom had been in this position before. I didn't write it after his first season because I thought it would be fairer to give them a chance to get him a season under his belt. And I think if you remember, at the end of his first season, he was horrible. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't write it in the second season because he did rebound a little bit. He played better. They played him in the outfield. And then entering 2020, Joe Girardi had slated him to be the full-time second baseman. COVID hit. He got COVID. He didn't play much at all, didn't play well, and now he's in AAA, which may be a blessing in disguise. I mean, come July, he might be the everyday major league second baseman. You never know.
Mm-hmm. No, certainly. And I will say this about at least his fielding and the way they've moved him around, which I absolutely think has had an effect on him and the plate as well. But it seems like he just needs those steady, consistent at bats that the minor league ball will allow him really the second chance at doing it. But even as they bounced him around at different spots, it seemed like he got better in the field, whether it's been at shortstop, not great by any means, but better at shortstop, better at third base, better at center field. But ultimately, it's still not nearly as good as what he could be if he was the everyday second baseman.
Well, he was a very, Larry Boa told me, and he wasn't the coach. I mean, by definition, he's still with the team. He told me he reminded him of Manny Trio, who had 3 Gold Gloves and I think 3 All-Star team invitations. Most of the scouts compared him more to Dustin Pedroia. When he got to be about 26 or 27, they thought his power would naturally blossom, especially in a park like Citizens Bank Park, where you and I can hit it out to the opposite field. So that was the kind of the ceiling. But his floor wasn't awful. I mean, I think we've seen the worst of Scott Kingery, and I agree. I mean, if he goes back to AAA and sees decent AAA pitching, he could become a very good professional hitter. And one of the things when it comes to development and, I don't know, when it comes to understanding what it takes to go from the minors to the majors, you got a bunch of 28 to 32-year-old major league pitchers pitching in AAA, and they've got 2 or 3 good pitches. Not great, but good. And being able to see a major league changeup, a major league slider, 2 or 3 times from the same pitcher over a 2-month period and adjusting to it, that just doesn't exist in AA. Being able to face a pitcher who doesn't throw 95 on the black, but maybe throws 91 on the black, and it's cold in Lehigh Valley, and you're exhausted, and you don't have any adrenaline, well, that's like facing 95 on the black, especially inside where Kingery struggles. He just hadn't seen enough AAA pitching to be able to close the holes that exist in his swing naturally. And then he's in a position where he's muscle-bound and uppercutting. So he had no chance.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the Phillies overall this year, what are you expecting? Are you expecting a 500-type team, a 90-win season? What are you expecting from the Phillies overall?
They've got a very good chance to win 90 games, even in the NL East, if their starters stay healthy. Their top 3 starters stay healthy. Problem is, one of their top 3 starters isn't healthy. Zach Eflin isn't healthy. But they do have 3 very good front of the rotation guys, 1, 2, 3 pitchers. From my money, they've got like 2 1.5s and a 4, but that is what it is. It averages out. And if their bullpen is decent, I think they're going to hit. They really don't have a weakness in the lineup except maybe center field. So they should be able to score runs. And if their pitchers can keep the ball in the ground, especially at home, they've got a chance to win 90 games. But it will take a lot. But they should certainly not lose. They should not be a below 500 team. They would have to be mismanaged and mishandled to be a below 500 team.
I agree with you on that. To spin it back to the NFL for a second, it's now official. The NFL is going to have a 17th game added to the schedule. I thought we would get here eventually. I didn't think it would happen this quick, but is the NFL ready with safety protocol and everything else? Is the NFL ready for a 17th game?
The NFL should play 14 games to begin with.
They added, 78? Yeah.
17 games is insane. Without an extra bye week, it's just madness. It makes no sense whatsoever. There should be 2 preseason games, 2 byes if you're going to have 17 games. And it's just crazy. I know it was coming, but I said it was crazy in December. I said it was crazy when they, in December when they let us know it was really going to happen. I said it was crazy last March when the union agreed to it. I mean, all of the veterans and most of the young players understood how much more taxing and injury prone you are when you increase your workload by 6%. I mean, imagine if they increased your workload at a regular job by a week and a half. You got to work 10 more days.
Right.
But no more vacation, but you got to work 10 more days. They took 10 days. That's what they did. They took 10 days of vacation away. Now they're going to pay you for it, but you got to work 10 more days. I don't know that many people sign up for. Nobody gives their vacation back,
Right.
So I don't know. It's just very, very few players. I think the number was somewhere between 75 and 85% of the players polled did not like that facet of the collective bargaining agreement, but earning 1 to 1.5% more on the face of it, that's a big difference for a young player. This is a 3.5 to 4 year league, so it increases your overall take by somewhere between $100,000 to $400,000. But it remains to be seen if it doesn't shorten your career by 6 or 8 games. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, yeah, it's craziness, but there is no demographic, there is no group in American history as greedy and as short-sighted as NFL owners.
I would agree. With that. Last thing for you, I want to close on hockey because I loved your take on this. Shane Gostisbehere gets placed on waivers. The Flyers have been struggling for quite some time now. Carter Hart, his work ethic's been questioned and all that stuff. This version of the Philadelphia Flyers with Chuck Fletcher running things and Shane Gostisbehere now being placed on waivers and Alain Vigneault running the ship as the bench boss and all that. How would you evaluate the way this Flyers team has really handled the transition going away from Ron Hextall to the Chuck Fletcher era?
I think Chuck has done a lot of the same things Hextall would have done eventually. The knock on Chuck is that eventually he loses patience and tries to win now and trades away prospects. But I think he's been relatively conservative. I think he's been thoughtful in what he's done. That said, I don't think that Ron Hextall benches Carter Hart, and I don't think Ron Hextall waives Shane Gostisbehere. But Chuck Fletcher and Alain Vigneault have treated these players like grown men since they got here, and it's the first time they've been treated like grown men. If the Phillies were to run their ship the way that this ship is being run, you'd see a market improvement in discipline. You'd see a market improvement in accountability. And, that's what Bryce Harper is talking about when he says he wants JT Realmuto to stay. Because JT Realmuto personifies professionalism. He's a sheriff. Bryce isn't a sheriff very much. But, if the Sixers had this sort of leadership 2 years ago, they probably would have been to the Eastern Conference Finals at least once by now, and Brett Brown wouldn't have been fired. And Brett Brown was part of that problem. Mm-hmm. But the reality is Joel Embiid runs that team and Ben Simmons runs it on the floor. And neither of them take orders. And I know this has sort of devolved into a macro bashing, but this is what every team needs. The general manager and the coach need to have the power over the players to get the results from the players that they need to get. And I don't know if it's going to work with the Flyers, but that's why they did what they did.
Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly a fan. It seems weird considering their defense has been struggling so much. It doesn't seem like they have many better options, but they're gonna try their best in that regard. Marcus Hayes, Inquirer.com. I'm going to put it up on the screen one more time so people can check it out. It just came on the site yesterday, so check it out. The story about Scott Kingery from Marcus Hayes on Inquirer.com. Marcus, I appreciate you hanging out in the confines of your minivan. Why don't you go ahead and get back to soccer practice, my friend?
I shall. Thank you for having me, Mark.
Absolutely. Marcus Hayes joining us on the Zatos Investments guest line. Always a good time catching up with Marcus Hayes, the realest of the real. You might not always agree with him, but here's the thing. Marcus, for a lot of people that don't know my definition of a hot take, where it's not a hot take if you believe it, Marcus isn't just drumming things up. Smart guy, feels the way he feels about a lot of things, and I couldn't agree with him more about Scott Kingery. As far as what the hell do they do with him? This is a guy who hit 26 home runs in the minor leagues as a second baseman. All of a sudden he gets to the majors, doesn't know how to play baseball anymore. And I was on board with the contract, thought he was a can't-miss type of kid, but I thought that when you give someone that contract, you want to put him in the best possible spot to be successful. And they didn't do that. Center field, shortstop. Second baseman shouldn't be playing shortstop. Second base, shortstop, center field, third base, all over the place, basically. Pitching. Yes, it was mop-up innings under Gabe Kapler. I get it. But still, they put him in a terrible spot. Put him where he's most comfortable. Let him flourish. You already had him into a 6-year deal. By the way, 3-year club options, by the way. So it could have been a 9-year contract. I said at the time it could have been one of the most team-friendly deals in all of sports, if not the most team-friendly deal in all of sports. And I feel like and look, some of the blame goes on the player himself. But when it's this much movement for one player, yeah, guess what? I'm going to blame the team, and I'm going to go ahead and blame the player. That's for sure. MarcusHayesInquirer.com joining the show. Make sure you check out that article on Scott Kingery. And Marcus and I are on the same page. As far as 17 games go in the NFL, we both saw it coming. We still think it's dumb. We knew sooner or later greed was going to win out, and that's exactly what it's doing. It's winning out in the NFL, and they get 17 games, and their greed is justified because guess what? We're still going to watch. We're still going to be there to consume the content as we all do these days. So thanks again to Marcus. Coming up, we got our morning rush. We also have our social media check-in. See, it seems like a lot more comments than normal right now on our YouTube page, so we're going to check that out in just a second. But right now, I do want to tell you about DraftKings Sportsbook. 68 teams started the tournament, and only the best have survived and advanced to this point. That's right. Just 4 teams remain, ladies and gentlemen. And what UCLA has done in this tournament has been nothing short of spectacular. Love watching UCLA play, especially last night. They eke out the victory over Michigan. So just an absolutely insane game last night. So what are we going to get to tonight? We're going to get to some other things here with America's top-rated sportsbook app, putting new customers in the center of the action. Bet $1 on any tournament game, and you can win. If your team wins, you win $100. That's right. Just bet $1 on your team of choice, and you could win $100. Right there that's one heck of a return on your investment. Pick any college basketball team that is still in the hunt, and your shot to win $100. That's 100 to 1 odds. 100 to 1 odds. It doesn't get much better than that with DraftKings Sportsbook. So don't worry though if college basketball isn't for you. DraftKings Sportsbook offers daily odds and also odds boosts on pro basketball, hockey, golf, and so much more. So make sure you take advantage of all that DraftKings Sportsbook has to offer during all the craziness right now in the sports world. DraftKings safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated sportsbook app, the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 if the college basketball team of your choosing of your choosing pulls off the victory. That's promo code Farzy to turn $1 into $100 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, new customers only, restrictions apply, in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. You hear us talking all the time about Zatos Investments. Zatos Investments is an up-and-coming luxury real estate development and investment company in the Philadelphia area. They design and develop top-of-the-line custom homes all around the city, ranging from small single-family rehabs to ground-up new construction townhomes and condo buildings. Zatos also works closely with their private investor base to provide them with substantial returns on their investment, ranging from 20 to 40%. These guys are just crushing it right now in the Philadelphia real estate game. To see some of their properties and learn how you too could invest with Zatos, reach out to info@zatosinvestments.com or simply visit zatosinvestments.com. How about the all-new app, the FanUp app? We got another FanUp 5 coming for you tomorrow with a very special guest to help celebrate opening day. Philadelphia fans, if you're not using the FanUp app, go to the App Store right now. Put in there FanUp, download the app, let the fun begin. You can win points, you can win cash, you can win prizes, you can win brand prizes. They gave away a Louis Vuitton last week. They're giving away sports merchandise, sports memorabilia. Make sure you get download the FanUp app in the App Store and use promo code FANUP to get 2,000 bonus points. I'm seeing some challenges roll my way. I see what you're doing. Challenges accepted. You can challenge me on the app. Find me there, Marc Farzetta, obviously, on the FanUp app. The days of playing fantasy sports, folks, by yourself, guess what? They're over. So download the FanUp app. May the best fan win. Mentioned we're going to get to our social media check-in. We're going to do that right now, courtesy of our good friends at Steak and Maine. Go to steakandmaine.com. Fine dining in the heart of Northeast Maryland. A lot of comments coming in here. I always enjoy just a morning, Farzy. Morning, Farzy. Hey, James, what's happening? Thank you. Good morning to you as well. The excuse train. This is James Tyler chiming in now. James Beelman earlier saying good morning. So the same to you, James. James Tyler saying the excuse train. No, thank you. And what was the excuse train? Just one more time. Speaking of trains, how about Ben Simmons getting rolled over by a train right there? All right. The excuse train after the game was that there was high altitude. High altitude in Denver. Who would have thought? So Ben Simmons goes out there last night, and after a bad performance, 11 points, what did I say, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, he goes, man, the altitude really got to me. All right, you know what? I've been altitude sick. All right. I was in a little place called where was I? Cusco, Peru, going up Machu Picchu, right? That's like 14,000 feet or something like that. So, yeah, I got a little sick. I'm also not a professional athlete. Also, then I was a professional athlete, and I was like 12 years younger when I actually did it. So, yeah, I know it's no joke. But this type of thing, like if you're running around out there and it gets to you, that just it puts my brain in a pretzel. That's what got to you so bad. And also, Denver has lost 9 times at home. So somehow, magically, for a team that's about 10 games over 500, they've lost 9 games at home. They've won 5. They're 5 games over 500 at home. So it's not like they have some huge advantage over the rest of the competition. But for some reason, the Sixers just couldn't find a way to deal with the altitude. And here's what I think happened. I think they think it was altitude. When in reality, I think they're just at the end of a road trip, on a West Coast trip, and they don't have their MVP player, and they're just exhausted overall at this point. Hopefully they bounce back against Cleveland tomorrow night. I would love to see that. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah, the excuse train is out. I actually saw this because I wanted to play the clip for you of Ben Simmons after the game saying that it was the altitude, and I couldn't find it on the old interweb. So I was looking around. I typed in Ben Simmons on Twitter, and I was looking it up. And all I could find was just people that had these outrageously stupid takes on Ben Simmons. And there's something that I think was a fake take. Now, a fake take, if you don't know my definition of this, a fake take is when the person goes, and everyone's been saying this guy sucks, when there's no one saying that this guy sucks, but this person that's saying it just wants to elevate their own point more. So I saw a fake take out there. I don't know anybody that came out and said, oh, with no Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons is going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. I never heard that. I know that there's been comparisons in the past, like that's the way he could play, and I still think that's the way he could play down the line, but just Joel Embiid going out isn't all of a sudden you get a boom, snap your fingers, and all of a sudden you have the offensive game that Giannis has all of a sudden in Ben Simmons. That's just dumb. That's what you call the casuals, as the kids like to say on the old interweb these days. The casuals might say that. But I saw a take last night. It was like, oh, everyone told me that Ben Simmons was going to be Giannis after the game. No. After the Joel Embiid injury. No one said that. And if anyone said that, they're wrong. So blatantly, obviously wrong that it's stupid, that take. But last night, if that's what you were expecting, you were definitely greeted with an unwelcome sight to your eyes, which was just a bad version of basketball. Not just from Ben Simmons. I know I'm piling on Ben, but it was the whole team. It was the whole team that was playing bad last night. So the excuse train definitely out. Peter's hitting us up Pete's hitting us up saying the rookie that trucked him, Ben Simmons. 30-year-old rookie. Yeah, pretty much. It was the Argentinian fella that trucked him. I showed it to you just now. Mally's checking in saying, good morning. What's happening, brother? Mally's also, this is a good one. Shane Gostisbehere, the kingery of the Flyers. Huh. The only thing I'll say, like in terms of younger guy, you wanted to do more. Yes, absolutely. But Ghost actually looked phenomenal at the NHL level for a long stretch in his rookie season. Kingery I just feel like digressed. And I don't feel like the organization, excuse me, it's hockey. I don't feel like the organization messed with Gostisbehere the way the franchise messed with Scott Kingery. Like, I think the Phillies messed with Scott Kingery more than the Flyers messed with Shane Gostisbehere, if that makes sense. But it's a good comparison in terms of just another young guy that had a lot of promise. The only thing is, I think Kingery never had the promise in the major leagues, like actually had any success at the major league level, the way that Shane Gostisbehere did in the NHL level. So let's put it that way. In Major League Baseball, I should say that about Scott Kingery. Yeah, G's effort's always there. I never question Claude Giroux's effort. That's our buddies at Nasty Knuckles checking in on the show. Prob not Mark. I wish. Good call. I don't know what that reference to, but thanks for listening and watching. Call me crazy. I hate this with 17 games. John, you're not crazy. It's dumb. It's like too much of a good thing, unfortunately. You guys better. The records for me when they extend the season, the famous one is obviously Roger Maris and 61 asterisks because they extended the game. What was it? 8 games they extended Major League Baseball from 154 to 162. So they put an asterisk by Roger Maris's home run record. Like, everyone who knows. And I think I think you can peel back the curtain to the point where enough people know. So that doesn't bother me so much anymore the record book front as it used to when I was younger. That's for sure. Thomas checking in. Audio going in and out. Hopefully that was just during Marcus, because I know he was in his car. By the way, champion Marcus is for getting involved in the show still, even though he was being the good dad. Appreciate that, Marcus. That was our social media check-in. Thanks, everyone, checking in on the program. Oh, Broad's checked in, just saying that everything's pissing him off. Me too, bro. Me too. Sports Talk with Broads. Appreciate that. Make sure you guys check him out. Get a little coffee with Broads. Maybe I'll do that a little bit later today. Anywho, that was a social media check-in brought to you by our friends at Stake in Maine. Let's move into our morning rush, brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. You heard me mention them earlier when we were talking about DraftKings. UCLA, Gonzaga, Houston, Baylor is the Final Four. First game of Saturday, you're going to have the 5:14 tip-off Houston versus Baylor, and then the 8:34 tip-off UCLA versus Gonzaga. I love watching UCLA. Now, last night's game, even though they won, good for them, but it wasn't, quintessential, I guess, UCLA. They had that the sophomore kid, Zhu Zhang, just tear it up again last night, 28 points. It was incredible to watch him. Had a clutch free free throw later in the game. So that was great. And with about 30 seconds left, just wild to watch that team play. They have played. I didn't feel like they did it last night, but for the most part, I feel like they play a very NBA-style game. Now, last night, Michigan and UCLA both shot terribly. Both under 40% from the floor, both around 20% from beyond the arc. Actually, UCLA was around 21%, and Michigan was around 27%. But UCLA is just that underdog story, and you're not used to UCLA and underdog story because they've won like 12 national titles, even going back to the John Wooden days, and then going back to their latest title in 95. So this has just been a great run to watch UCLA. They're trying to be, I believe, the first team since VCU did it back 6-7 years ago. They're trying to be the first team since VCU to be a first four to Final Four squad. So good for them. Gonzaga's putting their undefeated record to the test on Saturday. So we'll be checking that out as well. And then Houston and Baylor. Texas just getting it on right there. So we'll follow that game as well. I just think Gonzaga, this is where it ends for UCLA, but that would be chalk. And UCLA, you know what they say to chalk? To hell with you, chalk. So we'll see how that Final Four ends up. No real notable games in the NBA last night, other than the fact that I'm a big idiot. And I told you yesterday that I would have liked the Clippers at -10. I was checking and following that and actually ended up going to, I think, -11 or 12 shortly before tip-off. And I just said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm out tonight. Something rubbed me the wrong way about the Clippers. And maybe it was because they just blew away the Bucks. Maybe it was because they took care of business against the Sixers. Maybe because I think they had won 6 in a row at that point. I just felt like their luck was going to run out, and Paul George obviously wasn't going to be playing in this game again. So I backed out. I didn't bet the game. I stayed away from it. Thank goodness I did that because the Clippers ended up losing last night to the Orlando Magic. So that happened. I'm glad I stayed away from that game. I took an off night, but I'm thinking of getting in on it again tonight, and I will do that. Now, I mentioned this earlier, a beautiful story involving the 76ers and Danny Green. If you haven't seen this yet, this is incredible. Check this out. This is Lily Gu, I believe is how you say her name, or Lily Gui. Her 94-year-old grandmother spent the year in isolation studying the NBA and filling out a notepad with her favorite players. Well, on the right, she's actually pointing. Actually, just now that I'm looking at this, doesn't it look like her hands are giant with the way that that's spliced together? It's not supposed to, but that's how it looks. Anyway, she's pointing to Danny Green on the 76ers as one of her favorite players. She studied the NBA for an entire year. She came away with the feeling, you know what? I really like that Danny Green fella. And sure enough, Danny Green heard about this, and being the good guy that he is, you know what he did? He sent her a jersey. Check out this beautiful moment for this 94-year-old new NBA fan.
Whoa. What is it? What is it?
Oh. I think that's right. No, it's better. You put on the glasses on.
He wrote you a message.
Oh, thank you for picking me. Here's to 25. Oh,
No, 95.
95. Dan, right? Okay. Thank you, Dan.
How great is that? Now, first off, thank you, Dan. So we signed it Dan Green? He's been Danny Green as long as I've forever. Even when he was in a Tar Heel, Danny Green. And Dan is apparently how he signs his name. Anybody have an autograph from Dan Green? I think I went to high school with a Dan Green. I think everyone went to high school with a Dan Green, as a matter of fact. Dan! All right. Way to go, Danny Green. But how beautiful is that? The woman just got into basketball, picks Danny Green, one of her favorite players, 94 years old. It's never too late to try something new. Ladies and gentlemen, how great is that? So I guess I'm just going to call him Dan Green from now on. I assume he's actually Daniel. Like, remember, Jimmy Butler isn't James Butler. He's Jimmy Butler. Jimmy is his actual birth. Mama named him Jimmy. So I don't know. I thought Danny Green has just always been Danny. I didn't even think he was a Daniel. Certainly didn't think he was a Dan, but apparently he's a Danny. Anyway, good hustle to Dan Green. Good old Dan Green. You love him, ladies and gentlemen. So that there you go. That is our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motor Cars and SkyMotorcars.com. Do want to mention Flyers tonight. Sabres. I believe it's 7 o'clock puck drop, so make sure you guys check that out. Big bet segment. That's what I like tonight. Going to Minnesota. All right. New York Knicks -3.5 on DraftKings. New York Knicks -3.5 going up against Minnesota Timberwolves in Minnesota. I'm going to go with the Knicks winning tonight, covering -3.5. That's the bet I'm going with tonight. I'm glad I showed some reserve last night because I would have been a poorer man today. Showed some reserve. Sorry I told you that yesterday. That I liked it. And then as the day went on, it just didn't feel right. And you know what? You have no commitments, folks. If you're feeling something earlier in the day, and then right before your gut's telling you, no, stay away. Stay away from it. It's called maturity. And that's what I try to do. Nothing but maturity. Anyway, hopefully the altitude in Cleveland will be better, and we'll talk about that in a couple of days. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, it's not supposed to be nice weather. That sucks. However, tomorrow's still opening day. Tomorrow is opening day. And on the show, Mickey Morandini will join the program tomorrow to help us celebrate opening day. He's got a great cause that he's helping out with the Darren Dalton Foundation, so I look forward to talking to Mickey Morandini about all that. And it's a sin. It's a crime against humanity in Philadelphia, at least, if you say the name Mickey Morandini without saying Mickey Morandini. He'll join the show tomorrow, so I look forward to that conversation. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hey, Twitter, thanks for one more day of Periscope, I guess. So hopefully we just keep that going. Keep on keeping on. Thanks to Jim Hyden, produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Make sure you click subscribe on our YouTube page as well. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Mickey Morandini on the program. Have a good day. Take it easy.